Considering a housemate, we're going to talk about the pros and cons this morning. We've got some crackers for you. Stay tuned.
I'm the ringleader, so listen up.
Well, good morning, Mark.
Top of the morning.
Top of the morning, another Morning Minutes, another beautiful Tuesday. Here we are, ready to talk all things Housemate Wars.
Oh, you started off the morning and I was in stitches about your housemate story. I was like, we've got to talk about that. We've got to talk about that.
Yeah, so what happened, everybody, over the weekend is, so first things first, I live with a housemate in order to save money. And over the weekend, she was out with her boyfriend, staying at his place. And I was doing some baking and I sneakily helped myself to a teaspoon of her honey from her cupboard. And when she got home last night, she actually noticed that I had stolen a spoonful of honey without asking her. And I got in trouble. And firstly, I was in the wrong, but secondly, who notices a spoonful of honey?
Oh, and it's happening all around the world, all around Australia, all around Sydney. This is housemate life. But that's a talent. That is a serious talent to notice. And you swear it was only a tablespoon of honey?
Not even a tablespoon, a big teaspoon. And now I can't even eat my cookies because I feel like they taste like some kind of murder scene. The murder of the housemates.
Man, it's happening out there, and I'd love to know what people out there think about this, but is that right? Is it wrong? You did steal.
I actually did steal, and I think it comes down to I definitely should have asked beforehand. And there is some kind of underlying housemate etiquette that you do kind of need to adhere to when you're in a shared space. And sometimes I take that for granted because we are friends, we're not strangers. So I do find that I'm a little bit more willing to step over the line without asking for permission with things. However, yeah, when push comes to shove, it's housemate living, it's a shared lifestyle, you're not in your own space. So, ZANTHANY, at times, I do need to rein it in.
Do you think this would have been all right at times to do, and now it's not all right? As in, do you think that cracks could be forming on the housemate relationship, and this is one of the cracks that have formed? Or do you reckon if you did this on day one, halfway through, now, whenever, she always would have cracked it for the honey?
I don't think so. I think on house day one, when we became housemates, it would have been fine. But after spending a prolonged period of time together now, and also things are so much more expensive, right? The cost of living has risen. Everyone's feeling the brunt of that. And then small things coupled on top of one another. This was just the straw that broke the camel's back. And it was like, rah, ZANTHANY, you stole my honey.
So yeah, as your housemate, she'd have to know her levels before she leaves the home.
Yes, absolutely. No, her honey is really solid and like crystallized, so she could see the scoop mark taken out. It's not the runny honey.
Got it. Okay. Now, on an even more serious note this morning, housemates around Sydney and Australia exposed. What are the benefits and features of sharing a home? And I guess, look, we're two real estate agents. I love the topic because some people out there are not exposed to housemates. They've sort of lived with their parents and then they go straight into their own place, or they've just never done it. And some people are trying to save money, and we're talking off air about certain cultures that come to Australia. They hardcore do a share house, and they hardcore save money and work hard. It's very efficient. Question is, what are the features or benefits of the housemate thing that you found that you can promote people out there?
Okay, well, so I can't live at home, and I also don't necessarily love being by myself all the time. I love having someone there to talk to bounce ideas from, just to have another body in the house. So a housemate has worked really well for that while I'm not in a relationship or anything. So I've just got someone there. We don't necessarily need to talk about deep and meaningful things all the time, but we might just be able to watch a movie, to cook a meal together, and just to hang out, basically. Also, the cost of paying rent by myself versus what I'm sharing in a shared house accommodation, it's one extreme to the other. I'm managing to save a lot of money. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, so I am managing to save a lot of money, and long-term goals. Look, of course, I would love to be able to buy something, but right now, as a solo income earner, that's just not really feasible to me right now. So I have found a friend to live with. I haven't wanted to live with a stranger before. I feel like that would be a little bit too weird for me, sharing a whole entire space with a complete random. I personally wouldn't feel comfortable with that, but I know that
unless they were
do that.
very good looking.
What was that? Sorry?
Unless they were the opposite sex and very good looking.
That's true. Yes, actually. Unless they were very good looking, they were the opposite sex, and we had some kind of connection, then sure, we may as well just rent a one-bedroom place together, right?
It's true. Now, another thing as well, we can also come from the angle of home ownership. So you may actually own a house or own a 2 or 3 bedroom unit and want to share your facility, your home, with people in order to save some money. And I think at the moment, in a consolidating market, with costs rising, labour costs rising, food, grocery costs rising, petrol costs rising, interest rates rising, people are now saying, you know what, I need to be a little bit more streamlined, and I need to share my home or generate an income. It's a great way to generate an income.
I actually think it's such a good idea. If you are feeling the pinch of the higher interest rates and the rising cost of living, if you do have a spare room, put it up for rent and see if there are any bites. You don't necessarily need to take someone in, but see if you've got a connection, see if you vibe with someone, and just give it a go. It could be a short-term lease or a long-term lease. It will really help with your cost of living. It's a lucrative market, and there are actually plenty of websites out there that can even help you, such as Flatmate Finder, which is a good one.
I was going to ask that. So the best websites?
I personally found Flatmate Finder a really good one, but then also there are various things on Facebook that you can also look into, like Northern Beaches Property for Rent. It's a group on Facebook, and there are a lot of rental places or shared accommodations that are posted day in, day out. And I do think that's also a really good way to find someone to either rent a house with together, or if you wanted to move in with someone as well, and it's their place, but you're renting a room there.
Now, I don't mind the Facebook one because it's personality as well, so you can actually probably drill down a little bit, see if you have a friend in common with that person, see what they like, what they don't like. It's a little bit of a dating. Check it out. Still what this person up to.
Whatever. Do a bit of face creeping.
Bit of creeping. So if anyone's just tuned in, we're talking about sharing your home. Anthony's had a war she's stolen the honey from a flatmate. Flatmate's noticed the honey stolen, which is even more impressive. And in all seriousness, there's not only I think that obviously there's a bit of tension there, but something that we've identified is, sometimes you're just not getting along, and this happens. But also, I think when there's an abundance of when you're not trying to save money, you sort of don't care as much about your honey. But when you're trying to save money, you often are really trying to all round. Not expend or spend, and that's when there's probably a bit more pressure around with housemates at the moment with the fridge and the groceries and stuff.
Absolutely. And I do also think it comes down to as well, look, there are shared spaces within the house. So the shared spaces have equal respect for their stuff as much as you would expect your things to be respected. And in your personal space, such as your bedroom, do whatever you want. Who cares what you do in there? That's fine. If you want to, I don't know, hoard your honey under your bed and have that day in, day out, that's fine. But yeah, so shared spaces, I do think that as a housemate, living with another housemate, definitely pay attention, respect the shared spaces, keep them clean, just clean. Trust me, clean without even being asked to clean. It's like being in a relationship when you're with a housemate.
Yeah. It's a good old-fashioned putting into the world more than you're taking out, isn't it?
It is, definitely. And it just kind of shows that you are respectful of the house as much as you are of the person that you're living with. Whether you're friends, whether you're randoms, whatever, it is, like I mentioned before, a shared space. And good morning from Sydney, Jim Parker.
Oh, look at Jim. Jeff, save money, grab the honey. Jim, analyse all your costs and decide on
the ones you can do without if needed.
What a legend. Sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once here. And what's Michelle got to say?
What about in a lease situation? You need real estate's okay for that person to live there.
That's a big one.
That really is. And I'm going to palm this off to Mark to answer. He knows a lot more about the property management side of things than I do. He's an authority. I'm definitely not yet.
That's a big one. So it's so true because if you are bringing in a housemate, they should be on that lease. Not a hard thing to do because you're adding another income to the lease for the landlord. So landlord should be okay. And I do have to say, it's generally a little bit easier to add someone onto the lease when you're already in there and already approved than two singles that have never lived together before going into a fresh property on a fresh lease. So it's going to be easier than you think, just adding someone onto the lease. But bear in mind, take off the other person off the lease as well, and don't forget about the bond. There could be a bond switch out done there as well because it's in the name. The bond's in the name of the. You've got someone a housemate moving out. The bond can be in their name as well as yours. They're gone. 5 years later, you go to recover the bond, and you're trying to find that old housemate, and they're gone, skis. So make sure the bond name's changed, money's switched out, and get them approved for sure. Even for insurance purposes, it's just important to know who's living in the property. Bit of a pain in the bum, but do it properly.
Yeah, and like you said, if you're already living there, finding a new housemate to move in is quite a swift process. A landlord will always want, I suppose, two incomes in that property as opposed to one. It just covers their ass as much as it will cover yours too.
Before we go, two stories. Worst housemate you've ever had. How did that look like?
I'm live on air. So worst housemate I've ever had was when I was living with one of my ex-boyfriends, and he was just into a lot of different things that I turned a blind eye to before we started living together. So I kind of got over all of the bong smoking, all of the drinking, just the messiness. And I ended up being the crazy person talking like my housemate is now talking about honey. So that was definitely the worst housemate that I've lived with.
It amplifies the good, the bad, the ugly, doesn't it? When you're under the same roof.
It is. It's a pressure cooker situation, and then all of these things just bubble. And yeah, I was a rager.
Wow, best housemate you've ever had.
Look, I'm going to say that because I'm living with her right now, I need to be diplomatic and say, Katie, who I'm living with now, I love you regardless of the honey incident, and you're my best housemate to date.
Oh, and what makes her the best?
Well, we are really good friends on top of living together as well. So we do have that friendship built behind us being housemates together. So as much as I did get in trouble for stealing honey, we're able to work through it and just laugh it off. Well, hopefully that's the end goal.
So in your circumstance, which someone who made a great housemate was just that companionship.
Yes. Yeah. Being a good friend, being a companion.
There you go. So, guys, we're just housemates, Australia. We just talked about the highs, the lows, the ugly, and why people do it. Not a bad idea. Before we go, I want to mention, which I mentioned off air, I sold a building of about 100 units a couple of years back, and I distinctly remember a group of Nepalese guys and girls, and it was really interesting because they networked through each other, and one bought from me, then their friend bought from me, then their friend's friend bought from me. Next thing you know, I sold to about 15 of them into the one building. And what struck me with these guys was how, and tying this back to the housemates thing, was how efficient they were, given the amount of time they were in this country, given the amount of money they could save from hard work and consolidating their costs. So all of them were from like a share home environment. All of them, it made them very efficient in work, in savings, in companionship that we've talked today, and allowed them to move into a property purchase situation of actually buying a brand new property, which is just incredible for their first purchase. So there are, I think that housemate thing, if you can't live with mum or dad, is just absolute genius for you to save money and get on top of things.
I think so too. And the stigma about having a housemate these days has kind of dwindled as well, because we live in one of the most expensive areas in the world.
Yeah. And also it can be really daggy and embarrassing, but it can be really cool, spunky, sexy. So it's what you make it. It's the housemate you choose. It's the place you choose, and you can have a lot of fun with it as well.
Yeah, I agree. That's a wrap.
That's a wrap. Take care.
See you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers. Bye.